Hello, everyone. It is
Oh,
time for Revolutionary Change, and it is Thursday night. I'm Jen Perelman.
I'm Peter Hager, and I'm still trying to get myself adjusted to fitting in the frame. But
You
Jen, you're going to
need
teach me a few things.
all you need to do is get a tripod for the camera and have it set how you like it and not attached to your laptop that you keep moving around with you and having to readjust your computer to adjust your camera.
All right, I'll
Yeah,
get
see,
myself
stop
set.
every time you mess with it, you mess with you need a tripod.
All right, well, I'm still getting over a cold, so I hope you guys don't mind my slightly gravelly voice.
You're snively.
Uh, Trust me, it's been a rough few days, but I can't slow down. Well, here's the thing. I have slowed down. Like, I made sure not to be on the phone much today. I wasn't on the phone at all yesterday. So I've been preserving my vocal cords, which I know just makes it worse. And that's not even the worst part. The worst part is not being able to, get to the gym. So trust me, it's been a tough go of it, but great to see you.
And at least you're in Niceville.
I am in a nice town. It happens to be Niceville. It's like right out of Pleasantville. It's like,
Yeah, I am not in Niceville.
No, you're actually, where are you, Jen? Are you in
I'm
hell?
in the bowels of hell.
Yeah.
It's so hot out, honestly. It's so hot just walking from a parking space to the door of a store. And all we do in the suburbs, like the whole way this is set up is so irritating to me now, just the whole way. Like the amount of time we spend driving in our cars from parking lot to parking lot to go to different things and then just driving. And it's just so much concrete and it's so hot and the sun and the pavement, just honestly walking through a parking lot it's like being in an oven. It's like walking in an oven. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that sounds like Florida, that's for sure.
Ugh.
We do not have, well, that's South Florida, I should say. I mean, it's hot up here, but it's nothing like South Florida. It's just, there's no comparison.
No.
We will not have a guest this evening. It's just us two. Hope you'll enjoy that. I don't know how much you guys will be able to tolerate it, but we do have a slew of guests coming up over the next couple of weeks. And I'm sure you're going to look forward to, we're going to have Samantha Youssef, pretty noted, I must say, a Palestinian artist is going to join us on Monday. We will have Wally Rashid. He will be joining us next Thursday. That's who I have off the top of my head right now. I know Rachel, if she's in the chat, will remind me of who else I'm forgetting right now. But we're off to a slow start tonight, guys. What's going on here? Smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed.
Oh, I feel slow.
You do? Why do you feel slow?
Well, I mean, it's nice end of the week. I'm on summer break.
Oh, that's
I
right.
don't have, right? You know what I mean? Like, I have nothing in terms of like a kid in school or anything. I'm officially like done with school age children.
Well,
I'm just like sitting here. I'm like, I gotta find something to do with myself.
I've never lived that experience and I can't speak to it. Obviously, we want to get more people in here. I have a very strong theory about why Francesca Albanese was sanctioned by the U.S. And again, I don't think that directive comes at the hands of the president himself. I think it comes from much higher, more powerful people that did not like the fact that she was exposing their bullshit. And that's usually how it always goes down. There is also dissension in the ranks when it comes to what's going on right now in MAGA world. We don't generally talk about MAGA world because, frankly, I think most of it's bullshit and not worth the time.
Well, when you say MAGA world, it depends on what you mean in terms of like that.
Just
MAGA
in terms
world.
of like the gossip and the things that people like. We have gone through so many different experiences of what it's like with Democratic consultant politics and how it's basically the same thing. It's all about getting paid. And if you have people in, let's say, the right side of politics, it's easy to see why people are going to get caught up in wanting to bring down one side of a political ideology, but be completely hypocritical about basically the same things that they're doing. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And what I've learned is you are either on the side of corporate interests or you're not. I think that's the defining line as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about it, which is really very telling, is the timing, right? Because Francesca's been saying the same thing from 2 years. And truthfully, longer than that, right? This is somebody who is an expert on international law and human rights. And by the way, she's not a revolutionary, right? There's nothing revolutionary about her. And yet they're treating her like she's somehow some sort of, crazy, rebel. And all she's doing is wanting people to comply with the international law and calling out people that are not in compliance with international law. It is the most by the book thing. There's nothing remotely revolutionary about it. So, right, why call her out now? Right? Because she's been on this for a good chunk of her career, probably, right? So why now? It's because
Frederick's right. I mean, she's an expert, so naturally she's anti-Semitic.
Right. But no, that's what I mean. But she's been that for a long time.
Thank you, Rachel. So yeah, Blanche from Feast of the Middle East is on the 21st, and Maura Finkelstein will be, you'll love Maura, Jen. Maura Finkelstein will be our guest on the 24th. She was recently interviewed on Bree's podcast. She was a tenured professor at Muhlenberg College in Eastern Pennsylvania. And the Hillel Zio tribe at that college managed to get her fired because she had some favorable things to say about Palestine. So, I mean, we all know how that goes. Yeah. Speaking of speaking favorably about Palestine, that, of course, is the crux here of why everyone is coming after Francesca.
But it isn't. That's what I'm telling. It is not everyone coming after her. She has global world support. It's not everyone.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the reason that they brought the hammer. Well, I'm going to show you guys first and foremost why they brought the hammer down, and then we're going to play a clip.
Because it isn't just because she's calling it a genocide.
No,
she's been doing that exactly. That, let's be clear. I mean, they already hated her.
She's been doing that for a long time,
right? But why is she being officially sanctioned now? So this is the timing of it.
Credit to Al Jazeera. This is exactly why they did it. So. The UN, this is from less than a week ago. UN report lists companies complicit in Israel's genocide. Who are they? UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese has issued a report naming several US giants among companies aiding Israel's occupation and what they really need to stop. I understand it's for political correctness purposes, but they have to stop calling it a war because it's not. And just say Israel's genocide in Gaza would be more appropriate. I know that they try not to use that word for obvious purposes, but I think we all understand what they're trying to say.
Companies keep going.
Companies from other countries, from China to Mexico, are also named. Scroll down, please. So the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation on human rights in occupied Palestinian territory has released that new report. And so Francesca Albanese's latest report, which is scheduled to be presented at a news conference in Geneva, which was supposed to, there you go. This report, one day prior to her issuing it was supposed to be today, one day to her prior to her supposedly giving this report, was the reason why they sanctioned her, so that she can't give this report now that it's Thursday. Names 48 corporate actors, including U.S. tech giants Microsoft, Alphabet Inc., which is Google, and Amazon. A database of more than 1,000 corporate entities or subsidiaries, however which way you want to look at it, were also put together as part of the investigation. Israel's forever occupation has become the ideal testing ground for arms manufacturers and big tech, providing significant supply and demand, little oversight, and zero accountability, while investors and private and public institutions profit freely.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's like this would make a lot more sense if we didn't know what was in the report anyway. And this is what's so ridiculous. So they might have blocked her from making a presentation, but they're not blocking the actual findings in the report. It will still be an official report. Like, just because the US is saying, like, that doesn't do anything, right? So she's still filing this report. This is still the information in the report, regardless of what they're saying. That's what's so stupid. They're not preventing anything from happening. And we're simultaneously seeing all those companies anyway. So it just looks like bullying. It doesn't help. If this were, 50 years ago, you could get away with it because we wouldn't know what was in the report.
That's the blessing and the curse of technology.
Well, it's just, this is why this is so absurd to me, that they think that we don't see what they're doing.
Companies are no longer merely implicated in occupation. They may be embedded in an economy of genocide. It said in reference to Israel's ongoing assault on the Gaza Strip. In an expert opinion last year, Albanese said that there were reasonable grounds to believe Israel was committing genocide in the besieged Palestinian enclave. You think? And of course, the report stated that its findings illustrate why Israel's genocide continues, because it is lucrative for many, and that's it. You don't need to hear anything else. The reason any of this goes on, when people throw their hands up in the air and ask themselves, why does this happen? Because somebody's making a shitload of money off of it. That's it. And here's one of the reasons why. Israel's procurement of the F-35 fighter jets is part of the world's largest arms procurement program, relying on at least 1,600 companies across 8 nations. It is led by US-backed Lockheed Martin, but F-35 components are constructed globally.
This is how they keep everybody in line. That's how you keep everybody in line, because the oligarchy is global. It's global. But at the end of the day, the support that she's getting is more indicative of the majority of the world. Remember, we do not represent, nor do our allies represent, the majority of this world.
Here's what Francesca had to say recently.
Happening in Gaza is the shame of the century. Gaza has been erased. There is almost nothing left other than the despair of people who continue to perish there. Look at the acts of torture. Look at who's being killed. Doctors, nurses, students, mothers, children. 17,000 children. To look at what the soldiers have done and said, and then have the courage to say that this is not just.
I mean, I wish I could say we could snap our fingers today and no longer have a relationship with this genocidal, psychopathic cult of a nation.
But they are us. You can't, that's the thing.
They are only us to the extent that the powers that be want them to be us.
That's all that matters, though.
For now.
Yeah.
For now.
They're us. And by the way, there's no way that there aren't at least 250,000 dead children from this. There's no way.
And rising.
I know this, again, and I hate that I'm the math person. It's really scary to me that I'm the math person. But let's say it's about 500,000, and we know that half the population in Gaza is children. So I don't think I should have to point out the obvious, but it's to me, you're at about 250,000 children.
I just think that image is so telling. The way that they are just so, they act like they're commandos, but in reality, they're just a bunch of cuck pussies. Every last one of them. This is not a fighting, standing army that they're going against.
No, they actually, when they face an actual army, they run away and cry. The only thing that these people do is they're okay at being in tanks and flying above, shooting at abandoned buildings and shooting at women and children, essentially. They wouldn't go up against a real manly army. These are people, if you're this comfortable, killing people that aren't armed or whatever, you're not that's not a soldier.
No,
that's a homicidal maniac.
Agreed.
Genocide. This genocide would have not been possible without the shocking cover-up by the media. The role that corporate media played in justifying crimes, in spreading misinformation, like the 40 beheaded babies.
We have some really disturbing new information out of Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman just confirmed babies and toddlers were found with their heads decapitated.
But yet we're supposed to believe this entire time that it was Hamas that was doing it to Israeli babies. As they say, every accusation is a confession, especially when
it's just, that's all it is. It's a projection. What they're doing when they talk like this, they're telling you if it's either what they have done or what they're planning on doing. That's what that is. So this came, I don't know when this flashback is from. Like how soon after
within
October 7th?
probably a few days at most.
But there's still people that are in prominent positions and platforms that know better are still perpetrating the rape myth and have yet to retract it, even though we know that it's false. That's what's so infuriating to me. And people that we know better.
In Kfar Aza, in southern Israel, after Hamas attacks in the kibbutz over the weekend.
The basic ethical principles governing their profession.
I choked up earlier reading this new revelation about 40 babies being killed.
Oh my.
Is there anything you won't get choked up about if it pays you well enough, Piers?
More importantly, why are we talking to Joan Collins about world events?
Yeah.
Like, is she?
I mean, she was the star of Dynasty 40 years ago, Jen.
I mean, again, I have nothing against Joan Collins. I just don't understand what this has to do with anything other than they're just repeating the myth over and over, and they'll put it with any talking head.
Keep in mind, if you want to talk about how much plastic surgery one person can possibly have, just remember there is a great throwaway line in Mrs. Doubtfire when Robin Williams is with Harvey Fierstein, and he's asking him, who should I make you
right?
Look? And he says, how about Joan Collins? Oh, I don't think I have the strength. I mean, that was just so good. And that was over 30 years ago.
God.
And some of them being beheaded. And I was like, how can any human being do that to a baby?
Good
the
question.
Role of international media, of Western media in acting in defense of the acts of a genocidal state. This is unprecedented, but it's also revealing of the global situation we are facing, the fact that this is not just the genocide of the Palestinians committed by Israel. A number of Western countries are complicit, and so this is an opportunity to interrogate the system we live in, the checks and balances we have as a global community, how people in the West trying to stop the genocide have been repressed. There is momentum and goodwill to make a change, and people feel at loss because they look at their politicians who are in bad faith, especially those who claim to be human rights lawyers.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right.
They know that you.
Keir Starmer.
Then you right there by definition are admitting that you're an occupier. First of all, the fact that somebody, if one country has the capability of turning off of another country's power and water, then they're the occupier. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that we're not occupying them, but they have the right to turn off their water. It's like Jews for Jesus. That's not a real thing. You can't have it both ways.
I mean, this is like one of those moments where you know that if somebody like Jeremy Corbyn was there instead of Keir Starmer, that'd be a completely different situation and untenable. That's also the primary reason why somebody like Jeremy Corbyn can't be in a position of power, because it would completely F up this corporate infrastructure that has completely dominated the globe for such a long time. Now, it's only a matter of time because of...
It's happening anyway.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. It's happening anyway. They could try to, stop it by trying to hold her up, whatever that does, but again, they're totally Barbara Streisanding affecting the entire thing. Right? Like the more they go after these people, the more they're making these people be supported and get national attention, international attention. Right?
cannot advocate for starvation. They know that you cannot doubt that a genocide is ongoing when the International Court of Justice has recognized the plausibility of genocide. You should act upon the recognition of that plausibility.
I'm well aware of the definition of genocide, and that is why I've never described this and referred to it as genocide.
This genocide is also the consequence of the enduring impunity that Israel has been granted since its foundation. Israel has been allowed to violate hundreds of UN resolutions. And this is the result. A state that behaves as if it was above the law, and the state that becomes repressive against those who are trying to hold it accountable. Let me be clear. I have nothing against the State of Israel. The State of Israel is a recognized member of the United Nations, and because of this, I've always respectfully, since the beginning of my mandate, trying to engage with the State of Israel.
Stop it for a second. That's exactly what I'm saying. She's not even coming at this as an anti-Zionist, not thinking Israel should exist. She is not a revolutionary person. She is simply wanting an existing UN member to get in line with international law. That's it. That's all she's seeking to happen. That's what she's literally saying. She has nothing against Israel's existence.
And that's why I don't agree with what she's saying, because I have a huge problem with
Well,
this.
yes, that's what I'm just saying. Like, she's not the revolutionary. She's tame, and that's who they're going after. It's pathetic.
Yeah.
However, I cannot tolerate that the only modus operandi and the only way of existing of this state is by dispossessing, oppressing, and repressing another people. If the only way of Israel to exist is by being an apartheid state, well, we have a problem here. And this is where the conflict is. And Israel could be led by Buddhists, atheists, Muslim, Christians. It wouldn't change. The problem is not with the religious underpinning that Israel maintains. It's with the abhorrent human rights records that Israel has. This protracted impunity of Israel, including in the face of clearly war crimes, crimes against humanity, and plausibly genocide.
Okay, so you remember how I did that little impromptu deep dive into little Andy's educational background, and like he lied about having a degree from whatever school it was and all this stuff. So,
Andy Ogles, yes.
Yeah, little Andy. So I just decided, just for shits and giggles, to look into Francesca and what her education background is. So she holds a law degree with honors from the University of Pisa, Master of Laws and Human Rights from SOAS University of London. She is an affiliate scholar at the Institute for Study of International Migration at Georgetown University and a senior advisor on migration and forced displacement at the nonprofit. I could go on and on and on and on, right? Like, they're really messing with the wrong person. He's so out of his element.
Well, if you want to talk about a person out of their element, and this was perfect because this was from, I believe, like a week or two ago, very recently. But Mr. Wagenheimer from Israel, who is a reporter in Washington, D.C.'s bureau, had this to try to say or attempt to get Francesca, and she wasn't having any of it.
Mike Wagenheim with I-24 News. It's been a while since we've last spoken. A couple questions for you. In your report, you have a line in here that says that since its establishment, Israel has treated the occupied people as a hated encumbrance and threat to be eradicated. And you go on listing other items. We'll leave aside the contextual and factual debate about that.
Yeah, let's just put that to the side for a second.
There is no debate. There is no debate. And you are a walking, talking, breathing stereotype of everything that people hate about Jews. Like,
I was just going to say, he very much reminds me of like the politicos down here that are that same variety.
I just have to say this. I noticed this when I was at a conference. I won't say which and I won't say who, but what I will say is that it's very telling, because one of the things in business that you're always taught is that, and you could tell he doesn't do this when he's standing up or sitting down, but it's actually very professional to button the top button of your sport jacket. But when I've been at certain events and no one has their top button buttoned. Do you know why that is? It's they're carrying a big gut.
Okay, see, this is not of what's important to me. What's important to me,
just can't help it. I just had to.
I know, and but that's silly. That's not the issue.
The issue is that this guy wants to defend genocide.
So right, let him continue his ridiculous questioning of her and hear how she wipes the floor with him.
Based on that statement, it seems to infer that you believe that Israel has been an occupier since the day of its birth. Is that your position?
That's my position. How about you, Jen?
Well, that would be just a fact.
Let's be honest. We've all heard the script. Israel has the right to defend itself. Hamas uses human shields. It's complicated. The same tired talking points, recycled every time Israel drops bombs on Gaza. Over and over again, war crimes are rebranded as self-defense, apartheid gets a PR makeover, and mass suffering is spun as unfortunate but necessary. Frankly, I'm exhausted. Maybe you are too. That's why this conversation matters. In this video, we bring you a sharp and essential discussion between a group of pro-Israel journalists fully fluent in the language of Hasbara, and Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territories. And let me be clear, Francesca is not just another voice. She's a legal expert, a human rights advocate, and one of the few figures within international institutions willing to call things by their name: occupation, apartheid, ethnic cleansing. While the journalists parrot the usual lines, carefully crafted to frame Israel as the eternal victim and Palestinians as disposable threats, Francesca cuts through the noise with clarity, moral force, and hard facts. She doesn't shout, she doesn't need to. Her words carry weight because they're rooted in law, in evidence, and above all, in a refusal to look away. You'll see how these journalists attempt to corner her with gotcha questions, how they cling to selective outrage and false equivalences. But every time, Francesca brings it back to what really matters: the lives of real people, the ongoing denial of their rights, and the urgency of justice. This isn't just a debate, it's a glimpse into the larger information war. And Francesca is one of the few powerful voices refusing to play along with the script. So if you're tired of the propaganda too, if you believe in justice, dignity, and actual peace, not the fake kind that comes with surveillance towers and checkpoints, then this one's for you. Like, comment, and subscribe to help us break through the noise. And let us know in the comments, what gives you hope in this ongoing struggle for Palestinian liberation?
You said since its establishment, Israel has treated occupied people, etc. Are you inferring that Israel's been an occupier since 1940?
Why do you have to infer instead of sticking to what I said? And
I'm asking, that's what's in there.
Let me elaborate.
Okay.
Israel has taken, and I can concede that it has done it with the recognition of the General Assembly, but from a human rights law point of view, and as I take a people-centered approach, I cannot forget it. The creation of the State of Israel has meant the dispossession of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have been kicked out of their homes and never allowed to return. Why so? And does it make it an occupier? It makes a state. It makes of Israel a state who has forcibly displaced a significant part of the native population. And this is the past that has never been addressed. The Palestinians with Israeli citizenship who remained in Israel have been kept for 2 decades under military rule. And this is why when I say an encumbrance, I was not even referring to them, but as you ask, I mean, this is documented, so it's not debatable. It's history. And since 1967, which is what I'm most interested in because of the mandate I have, Israel has continued these practices, has extended the custodianship system that had been used to take control of all the properties left behind by the Palestinian refugees, but without time limit. So from 1967, I think this is Military Order 58, or one of the early military orders, Israel has been able to seize and acquire all the property left behind by the Palestinians. The 350,000 were forcibly displaced outside the occupied Palestinian territory in 1967, and the hundreds of thousands who have been kicked out of their homes and lands ever since.
Yeah, she's an anti-Semite.
Right. She's the problem. So, but you see how the way that they question her is from this complete level of condescension. Are you implying that, no, in fact, I'm not implying, I'm stating a fact. But just the way that he comes at it with this, it's so Zio. It's this level of just condescension, and you're going into it with this idea of you're entitled to it, whether this lady knows what she's talking about or not. And she knows what she's talking about. See, that's the thing.
She is a great leader. And as somebody pointed out, what's this nonsense? This is a volunteer position. She is not paid, nor are her expenses paid.
She's a scholar
Yeah.
on human rights and a human rights law scholar. Like, her life has been dedicated to human rights and justice.
But again, the nebbish Israeli living in Washington is on the defensive because, again, as you've pointed out time and again, it's usually a tell. I mean, it's always a tell. They're basically admitting their own guilt. They know what they're doing is wrong, but they feel they're justified, which is why the constant talking point that we hear today centers around, well, this is what God promised us. You can't prove a negative. That's why there's separation of church and state, which should be a very sacred part of our First Amendment rights here in the United States, does not appear to be something that we seem to value anymore, at least not in the context of how it should be. And I've always felt that's the problem. If you want to believe what you want to believe, that's perfectly fine. Keep it the hell out of my business that affects everyday people in our country. I think that's pretty common sense.
It is, and it's ironic how much they're so anti-Muslim, as if that the countries that are Islamic countries are these religious, radical, crazy regimes. And yet we live in a place where they're forcing in Texas to put the 10 commandments in all of the public schools and all this stuff. So it's like, it's all a projection. What we say about countries like Iran, and again, I'm not saying that they don't have issues. The truth is, I'm sure they have issues. All people and countries have issues. But a lot of it's projection. They just don't see their sort of Christian nationalist identity in the same way as religious nonsense, even though those of us that are atheists do.
And I think that also lends to another important part of tonight's conversation, which is about Jeffrey Epstein. And why does that matter? The reason why the Epstein story matters, and the reason why it's being put out there the way it's being put out there. Colin, please get me the clip that I sent you from Trump. What we have to remember is that they want this swept under the rug for a couple of reasons. They want it swept under the rug because they know that Epstein, number one, it was admitted that Epstein was intelligence. And you cannot have something lingering where the guy clearly had some type of a black book or whatever it was that he kept as a log. One of the things that I wanted to point out right off the bat that many of you might not know, but this is a throwback. So I lived in Delray Beach for 7 years. I was fairly familiar with Palm Beach and just different people there. But one thing that was brought to my attention the other day, which I found interesting, is many of you may know that Howard Lutnick is Trump's Secretary of the Treasury. Well, it turns out that Howard Lutnick is two things. One, he was Jeffrey Epstein's neighbor, and he was one of Hillary Clinton's biggest fundraisers when she ran for president against Bernie Sanders. So when we say it's a small club and you're not invited, that's what we mean. When you get to the real power, there's no difference between the two parties. As Mr. Rothschild said over 200 years ago, I don't care who's in power as long as I control the money supply. That's it.
Okay, so what are we looking at here? So they're all friends, like that whole group. They're all friends.
I can already tell you what the what the plan is. And I think we all know what it is. They're going to throw Pam Bondi under the bus. They're going to make her be the fall person.
In what way, though? In what way?
Exactly.
I don't see how that works. We all know there's a list.
Of course.
We all know that there was an entire enterprise that didn't exist for the sole pleasure of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, right? So we all know this, just like we know that, you know, the people who killed Kennedy is not what we're told, right? Like, we know this. So what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, but what I find so interesting is that they are so bad at hiding this. Like, it's to the point in which you almost have to wonder, are they winking at us? Like, come on. No one's this bad. Although maybe they are. Who the hell knows?
See, the problem I have is I don't even see why they bother hiding it. It's not like if the list came out, there would be any accountability anyway. We know all sorts of shit that people do that's off the chain, and there's really no accountability.
We have been hearing from the powers that be for the longest time, forever, that they are basically thumbing you in the eye now, daring you to rebel, daring you to have a revolution in this country. Again, that's what they're daring you to do.
Yeah, but my revolution is not about Jeffrey Epstein or any of these assholes.
No, this revolution is about disintegrating the relationship between the United States and Israel. That's the goal. And this is why what Trump said was unbelievably mask off.
Your memo and release yesterday with Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you?
No, Alex Acosta did in fact say that Jeffrey Epstein was intelligence. Not allegedly. He said that the reason that they could not take Epstein down back in 2009 was because he was intelligence.
Now, this is one of those things where are they splitting hairs as to whether or not he was an agent versus whether or not he was just an asset? So there, you know what I mean? In any event, he was over his head in Mossad and that kind of intelligence and all that bullshit. He was totally in on that stuff, whether willingly or not.
Resolved whether or not he did, and also could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the native set?
Yeah, sure. If
could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
Here's what I would have said. I would have said, no, you know what? You're right. Let's talk about Texas. Let's talk about all the reasons that budget cuts and all of these things are going to affect everybody. You're right. We shouldn't talk about Jeffrey Epstein. We should talk about those things. I think it'd be freaking great.
Why are we talking about this Jeffrey Epstein? He's a really terrible guy, and he's not here anymore, so he can't.
We need to just move on. Are you still talking about that child trafficker?
I mean, I understand he was a close personal friend and all, but I didn't know anything.
Unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
That is such a good narcissist Darvo right there. Now, I could almost replay the Darvo in slow motion. That was like the most glorious narcissistic thing. He asks a question about something relevant, and then you turn it around. You not only deny it, you then gaslight the person of, like, you're accusing them of being so insensitive to what the really important issue is. See, that is it was glorious. He's like a pro.
There are people that support Trump that truly believe he is somehow this America First hero that is actually looking out for the working class of this country, which we all know is not true.
No.
And if the bill that just passes any indication, that should tell you all you need to know. But if you need any further proof that the reason that they are suppressing or trying to bury this story about Epstein, which is going to sink this administration and sink this movement, it's because of this response from Ben Shapiro.
Have the answers. And the problem is this.
people who never
I
hedged
cannot
their
practice
bets, people who never at any point suggested to you that they don't have data to back up the speculation, that the speculation was in and of itself the conclusion that if you speculate without evidence, that amounts to an actual conclusion to an investigation, they're going to be very upset today because it turns
I honestly want to know who listens to him. He tries to talk like he's smart, but he's such a dumbass. And it's so obvious that he just practices linguistics all the time. Like that's what he does all day, every day.
He's just somebody that was like, honestly,
loved in too many lockers.
That and like just really excelled on the debate team and just, he was just that. And that's how he was able to really achieve things. He's that guy. He was in the debate team. And he thinks that if, he talks a certain way, it makes him sound so much smarter.
Out that the DOJ and the FBI have concluded that Epstein didn't have a client list and died by suicide, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained by Axios. Now, again, does this put to bed like all inquiries? Of course not. People can continue to speculate as much as they want. And I think there's still open questions here regarding how did Epstein make his money?
Les Wexner? There's no questioning how he got his money, who he was doing business with.
This is the thing we need to talk about, the facial hair disparity between the darkness of the eyebrows and the paleness of the beard situation that he's trying to grow his peach fuzz. But the problem is they're just so it makes the eyebrows really dark. That's what it is. I think his eyebrows are the same as they've always been, but because he's growing facial hair that's lighter than his eyebrows, that it's making his eyebrows appear even darker. That's my
expert opinion.
That's my expert opinion on the eyebrows, because I don't think
that's a very serious open question. And the speculation for a long time was he made his money from blackmail. But the DOJ and the FBI, again, run by people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are telling you, I'm not telling you, they're telling you, people who are members of the Trump administration, people you elected and put into these positions to get you the truth on this matter, are telling you that he didn't, in fact, he was not murdered. He did not keep a client list. And he did not blackmail powerful figures. Okay, right? That is the thing that they are saying, not I. They are saying this. If you're willing to throw that over and claim they're lying, then I'd like to see you present your evidence that they are in fact lying. Because
okay, does that mean we get access to the files? How would one do that? How would one challenge that? How would one do that? Like how
could he be so flippant?
Oh my God, he is such. He's just on the payroll.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I know Dan. I don't think that Dan Bongino is lying to me. I know Kash Patel a little bit. I don't think Kash Patel is lying to me.
I know Kash Patel a little bit, just a little bit. He's definitely not lying to me. No, he wouldn't lie. No, you're lying for them because you're protecting Israel. That's what you're doing.
It's just so.
Ben Shapiro is a traitor to this country. And he should be called a traitor every chance we get. Any chance anybody gets, they should call him a traitor. And the point of these clips is to bring it full circle and give a shout out.
Well, Noah's correct. The issue with Shapiro is he's malicious. He's not a grifter. He really believes in Jewish supremacy. Here's the problem, Noah. Both of those things can be true. He absolutely is malicious and believes in white supremacy, white Jewish supremacy. Absolutely. He is also a grifter. And he could be a grifter in a way for the GOP and yet also simultaneously be a piece of shit that is a bigot. I'm just saying both of those things are true.
I have never, ever watched a single episode of Shapiro, and I never would, because his voice is grating. And I understand it's very triggering for a lot of people to.
Oh, it's not. First of all, he presents like he's a Muppet. He looks like a Muppet from Sesame Street.
The biggest issue that I can see with Shapiro, and getting back to what you guys are asking, how do you know that Shapiro is a grifter? The one thing I know, again, Victoria, what you have to remember is that when you're a channel like Ben Shapiro's, it's getting boosted all the time. It is amazing how big channels can get when the algorithm is completely working in your favor. Everything that Shapiro talks about is done on behalf of corporate power, particularly between the United States and Israel. He is a conduit to Israel. He has a relationship with Netanyahu.
He's on the payroll.
100%.
He's compromised. He's compromised. It's that simple. He's compromised.
And the one thing people know about Shapiro's show that is universally known to anyone who's a layperson about what Shapiro talks about, the guy does ad reads several times on every single show. There is nothing he will not promote in order to get paid.
In all fairness, I was told that we get a lot of ads during our live stream, which I'm not aware of.
No, totally different. I'm talking about he gets an ad and he reads it. He's paid a lot of money.
Hey, I'd be happy to do that as opposed to having them flash and take up time. Anybody interested in sponsoring us, we'd be very happy to talk with you.
No, we would certainly be happy too. But
I'm just saying, I'm not going to fault him for his advertising stuff. If he was doing decent content and wasn't a tool of empire, I wouldn't mind that he had to like promote some products. That's not the problem. The problem is he's a tool of empire and a piece of shit.
Yes. And if we're asking ourselves, well, why is it that they're lying so deliberately? I could say the exact same thing that Sagar and Jetty said to Tucker Carlson the other day, but I do feel that they captured this perfectly. Sagar nailed it perfectly as to why, because it appears so obvious to anybody that this is a cover-up that makes Watergate look like nothing. Like, that's how significant this is. The whole thing about Watergate's cover-up was in response to Daniel Ellsberg's release of the Pentagon Papers. And then, of course, wanting to get as much dirt on the Democrats as possible, even though it was obvious that Nixon was going to win re-election. So he did it anyway. It was completely stupid. And it was the whole concept of the cover-up versus the crime is completely, today, it pales in comparison to anything that is going to happen now in terms of protecting the Epstein client list, which we already have a pretty good idea of several people that are on.
So what we're saying is, so Ben Shapiro is just towing whatever they're telling him to tell, right? He's taking the party line. So this is where we're seeing a split in the MAGA and 100%. In what's going on there. So so Ben Shapiro is the example of
he's the Israel thing. Yes.
Well,
yes. Well, Ben Shapiro.
We know his motive is Israel based, but right, he's going along with the there is no list. Okay.
See, the problem with Shapiro is that he represents two sides of a very important political coin in the GOP. He not only represents the Jewish vote in very prominent areas of the United States, he's also a frontman for the evangelical vote in the critical states in the South and in the heartland for the GOP when it comes to Christian Zionism.
Which is so great because that most of those people are huge anti-Semites.
It doesn't matter. It's a means to an end.
He doesn't care.
No.
They'll work with his yarmulke little self, and if they think that'll get them to their rapture.
If the Sammy Davis Jr. wannabe John Hagee were to use him as an example, John Hagee, you would think on the surface, just common sense, John Hagee's an anti-Semite. Like, he clearly has nothing. He has no love for Jews. He's basically a Pentecostal preacher disguised as an evangelical preacher living in San Antonio, which doesn't really make much sense. But he has several million person congregation that is either attending or watching on Sunday, morning shows.
Oh, it's very big live. I'm very familiar with the Cornerstone.
So as a result, if John Hagee were to offer Shapiro money to promote this talking point, you think Shapiro's going to hesitate?
Well, right. No. Yeah, that's the thing. He's on the payroll one way or another with whoever he's on the payroll with. So which GOP people are taking so you have a clip from Sagar that has a different.
So the most notable voice, I would say, that is a supporter of Trump's or has been a supporter of Trump's and has been in the inner circle that is 100% against what is going on in Israel is Tucker Carlson. And that split is very real, and they have come at him very hard. Now, Sagar, who is definitely libertarian right compared to evangelical right, and this is what he said. which I think is very poignant about why this whole cover-up is happening.
Also, look, I actually, on our show, our producer went to the Bronx, AOC's district, and interviewed people who were AOC Trump voters. And the number one reason that we got from them was war. It was the promise to bring an end to the war, both in Israel and Gaza and in Ukraine, because there is something visceral. Let's say that you live in the Bronx and you're having problems in your neighborhood, and watching these countries get tens of billions of dollars. 3 carrier strike groups of the United States of America were present in the Middle East specifically to back up Israel during the 12-day war. You asked Ted Cruz a very important question. Do you know how much that costs? I looked it up. It's actually public information. It's about I believe it's like $250 million per group per month for deployment. That was just for the deployment. The April operation.
That's separate from weapons fired.
That's separate from all the, and by the way, that number, which they will never release, is in the billions of dollars.
And the great point that Sagar's bringing up here, which we constantly bring up on our channel, is that they will tell you what the budget is, and then there is earmarked money that never makes it into the budget that you don't even know about. Kind of like when Rumsfeld, the day before 9/11, says there's $2 trillion in unaccounted money in the Pentagon. What does that tell you? It is a financial scam on a level that people can't possibly wrap their heads around.
But what was his, I thought you were showing me something regarding
I'm going to get to that, but this was a very important, this is a huge part of the split that is happening with MAGA right now, because
no, it's mostly financial for sure.
Yes.
Like that's the big part of it is about America first and what that really means.
100%.
Yeah. I'm just curious where it crosses over, where those type of people are on the Epstein, whether or not they're being truthful about that.
Well, that's going to come at the end, but we'll finish this out.
And then let's take opportunity costs. We basically used up, a massive stockpile of U.S. interceptors, which are critical for our bases in Qatar or for everywhere else around the world, on behalf of this foreign nation, which we were told repeatedly the reason we give it $3.3 billion a year was so they can defend themselves. Well, if they can defend themselves, then why did it take the full deployment of the U.S. empire to basically shield it? And even then, in terms of its shielding, I'm sure you felt the same way. I've been to Tel Aviv. Watching that city get rocked by rockets was a shocking experience. That was not what we were. I hated it too. I've been there. It's a beautiful city. Yeah. The people there are great. And to watch their cities, that's some London level, photography from World War II. And so the fact that happened, and that also, by the way, we just increased the defense budget to $1 trillion. For what purpose? I can't.
Just that number alone, it's so absurd on such a level. And I think it was pointed out the other day, we now spend more money, this budget, this big, beautiful budget bill that we just passed. Do you know that this budget has increased the amount of money earmarked for ICE is more than the Department of Education and the Department of Labor combined?
Wait, I want to put this up too. I want to say something. Okay, Noah. Here's the thing. You and I, we would get along so gloriously, but I'm just going to explain this. So Noah says Israel is just a parasite that is taking control of America, its host. I would suggest that America and American empire is the parasite that's trying to devour the whole world, and Israel is one of our tentacles. Food for thought. Onward.
Exactly tell you, because even with that money all spent in the past, it doesn't seem that we're all that competent at building interceptors, at ammunition. Russia, I believe, has a defense budget like more than 1/4 or something like that of the United States, produces like more ammunition than all of NATO combined. How do these things happen, right? So we have rife for corruption. The point is that MAGA and the right, let's say the non-MAGA right, people who voted for Donald Trump in good faith on a variety of good promises, I think for those people, and especially younger Americans, there is a visceral disgust at watching the level of tension and obsession over this foreign nation. And it's particularly galling because we have people like Ted Cruz who say, why are you obsessed with Israel? And it's like, what did I just describe here about
calling you
called
me an anti-Semite like 10 minutes in.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. Disgusting, but
what's absurd is like Tucker Carlson is a lot of things, but anti-Semite wouldn't even I just don't.
He's a wasp. He's a privileged wasp, and he had sort of a come to Jesus moment after the Iraq War, and he's been repenting ever since. And they think, oh, well, listen.
I'm just saying, I don't think he's got a problem with, and certainly not in the sense that they're using it, which is when we say anti-Semitic, we're meaning anti-white Ashkenazi Jew, which they're not even Semites. So in that capacity, no, I don't think Saagar has a problem with other capitalists like himself that happen to be of the Jewish faith. I don't think he gives a shit.
No, and maybe not. But here is a telltale sign, and this is what brings it full circle as to why the split with MAGA is happening right now as a result of Jeffrey Epstein.
At this point, is not even part of trying to convince any of this is true.
Yes.
The lie is a signal to everybody else involved in the scheme that to the ultimate ends, the United States government will go to protect all of you.
Yes.
And that's the for
Man,
what
is that smart.
purpose?
Can you say that again? Okay,
Yes.
so it's a signal.
The lie is not for you and me. The lie is for those implicated to say, no matter what, we will protect you. And then we have to start asking the question, why? As in, what is the purpose of this entire thing?
And I still maintain that the biggest reason that the Epstein list and the entire fiasco that is happening right now has everything, and I mean everything, to do with protecting this unholy alliance that we have formed with Israel. Because if it comes out, if the information is presented, not only do we have a whole bunch of dual citizens, but really Israel first citizens that are also child fuckers, among other things. Excuse my language, but it's, truth has to be told. This is the big issue here. This is also shielding the backdrop of why Trump's bill is so bad and why passing that bill is going to be so devastating in the long run. And this is why I have no concern whatsoever for anything that the Democrats do. I hope that party gets dead and buried. It's going to become regional. It may have incredible leaders like Zohran who may ascend, and we'll get to Zohran shortly. But keep in mind, the Democratic Party is not going to campaign in the midterms on single-payer healthcare under any circumstances. So I don't give a rat's ass what they say. I don't care if the Democrats allow the Republicans to bury this country into the ocean. I don't care. Because when it's all said and done, we are either going to band together as a nation and take back our power, or we're going to allow it to fail. And if it's up to me, I would rather have a nosedive than a death by 1,000 paper cuts. I don't want to keep feeling like there's some type of hope here for this system. There is no hope. The system is done. It is finished, and let the state of Israel be the reason, with the backdrop of the Epstein scandal, be the reason why it happens. They have made this so painfully obvious and throwing it in everybody's face that, yes, we are lying. We don't care. And yes, all those things that we promised you about a better life here in the United States, even in the grand scheme of things about how much money is actually spent, that's not what this is. This is also the defense of what we said earlier about Francesca. The reason why Francesca is getting her ass hauled right now by the U.S. and she's being sanctioned before she could give her speech to the UN Council, why was it? Because she was exposing the very people that have the real power. Bill Gates has been to Epstein's Island. If that was released, if there was like a formal press release that said, by the way, Bill Gates, one of the biggest fundraisers in politics of the Democratic Party, mind you, that this guy's a pederast, along with Alan Dershowitz and a whole host of other people. Yeah, this country is like raging at this point. And the only thing that's holding it together is that there is still a substantial portion of the MAGA base that doesn't want to let go of dear leader. Now, thankfully, a lot of people have. And they are looking in another direction. They're looking at people like Thomas Massey. They're looking at people like Tucker Carlson, and they're saying, those are my leaders. Those are guys who actually do care about us.
Can I address somebody? Did you see this? Eva, okay? You're in the wrong place. So if you want to be here and troll, that's fine. Just keep it polite. We don't care. It helps our algorithm and stuff. But you're not going to find camaraderie here. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just silly. You're silly.
That's not
Like,
her
nobody's
intention.
going to take you seriously. Right. I'm just saying, and it helps our algorithm. But if you keep it polite, you know, I have no problem with you staying here. But yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that, and yes, and Josie brings up a great point. I don't need to, we're not going to make a whole segment out of it because we already know what a shitbag, you know, Chuck Schumer is. But Chuck Schumer just did a whole private meeting with Netanyahu.
Of course
and
he
then
did.
a follow-up with him. Because of course they did. And there is this belief that somehow the Democratic Party is going to evolve, that somehow they are going to, and this is the thing that I also find interesting because apparently one of Obama's top guys is like going around saying the Democrats have to stop taking AIPAC money. You don't understand. That's not what the problem is here. It's one problem, and it's a big one. But you're asking the Democrats to stop taking AIPAC money. You're not asking them to stop taking corporate special interest money. You're not saying that. You're just saying, don't take this money, but you could take that money. Kind of like how Wasserman Schultz would always talk about, I don't take any NRA money.
Right. I don't take gun lobby money. I just take, you know,
I take everybody else.
And private prison money.
Mm-hmm. Even though that money's all commingled with the NRA anyway. But, you know, on paper, it makes it look better. And this is the problem. Because when it's all said and done, that is what is going to happen. The Democratic Party will continue to sink. It will ultimately fail because it's not going to change its infrastructure. It won't. It can't. And what you're asking the Democrats to do, if they were to do that, is to completely clean house, because that's what they're going to need to do. It is going to be very interesting to see what happens in that with that Senate race in Michigan. We're still trying to get Abdul El Sayed on the podcast. We certainly wish him well. He has taken a few cues from what Mamdani is doing in New York. Kudos to him. Kudos to but again, regional, race-specific, things like that will make the difference. The infrastructure of the party, broken, can't be fixed. And if you allow people to stay in the party, unless you're housing some type of a real change, it's not going to matter. Which is why, like I said, focus on what you can control and continue to form alliances with people who are on the same page on critical issues, like ending this unholy alliance between the United States and Israel. That's the top priority. And that's what's going to bring us that change. Remember to go to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month.
Can I say something regarding what you were just going on your pontification about for a second?
Sure.
Because I feel like this is where you and I have this disconnect in terms of, like, you think it's that we have to sort of end an alliance with Israel, right? And I think that Israel needs to cease to exist. And by doing so, then, yeah, we would by definition not have a relation with them because they would cease to exist. But that's what I'm saying. Like, and when you present it like we just need to end ties with them, there is no ending ties with them. If we end ties with them, they end. So
okay, well, I'm fine with that.
Well, no, I know, but that's the more I think the approach we need to take, more so than saying we need to cut ties. There's no cutting ties with them. They are us. So it's sort of being like it's perpetuating this notion like somehow there's some independent country that can exist on its own. They can't exist on their own. So that's what I'm saying. So what we're saying is, because, you know, this gets around to language matters where people say, well, does Israel have a right to exist? No country has the right to exist. But especially a country that refuses to comply with international law, which of course is us too. But so when you say it from the perspective we should cut ties with them, it's sort of, I think, you're minimizing the situation that it's that they don't need to exist. It's not cutting ties with them. They need to not exist. They need to not exist. American empire needs to not be empire. That's the difference.
Well, at the rate that they're moving at right now, I would say that is definitely likely. And remember, a lot of these efforts work. If you protest against Maersk and they stop shipping weapons, among other things, to Israel, it does work, and it's going to work. And look, friend of the show, Chris Smalls, along with Jacob Berger, who we're hoping to get on the podcast at some point as well, both of them are going to be on the next Freedom Flotilla trying to bring aid over to Gaza. And listen, even if it's another failed mission, even if it is a suicide mission, it brings us one step closer to breaking that country because they're cratering. And we're
they are completely cratering, which is what I'm saying. Like, it isn't about severing our ties with them. It's about we accept that that's a failed experiment, and it happens as it happens. It's being simultaneous with also just the general implosion of American empire across the whole world. Israel being one experiment that is a complete and utter failure. But we're seeing these things happen at the same time. So Israel is going to cease to exist as it exists. That's going to happen. Agreed. Now, what that looks like, I don't know. I don't know what that ultimately will look like. But it's going to cease to exist. But so is American hegemony. It's going to cease to exist. And those both things are happening. But yeah, we're not cutting ties with Israel because we are Israel.
Patreon.com/revolutionary change. If you like hearing Jen's rants or mine.
My rants.
Please make sure that you go over there to support. Or if you would prefer to become a YouTube member or provide a super chat. S. Jarrett, thank you so much as always for the 99 cents. Every dollar counts. JM, thank you for the $2. A little bit more. We're moving up the ladder, Jen. We're getting our shekels. We're counting them. They count. Fart boys for life. I know you just want to hear me say that every time you're here.
I think that he just likes everybody. It says it has some sort of inside joke.
We're all about them inside jokes. It's all
but
good.
Just read them. Make sure you read them in order.
At this point, it wouldn't be surprising if a massive gold-framed portrait of Netanyahu looking like a budget Hitler gets proudly hung, and this is number 2, in the Oval Office, especially if Bibi himself hand delivers it from Israel while Trump gushes, "It's a tremendous honor." And just to complete the farce. And thank you for the $20, Fart Boys.
Thank you so much, Fart Boys.
Hey, got you to say it. Trump and his circle of traitorous lackeys would probably start every morning with a little prayer to it, because nothing says defending democracy like idolizing authoritarian war criminals, traitors to U.S. Yes, I agree. And here's the thing. They all are. The problem with Trump is he's so brazen about it. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about hiding.
And in reality, and this is what's really interesting. So when we say they're traitorous to what? To what we are or what we're supposed to be, because they're very on brand of corporate captured, capitalism, like what we're living here right now. Like they're very on brand for that. They're actually serving it quite well. They are not traitors to that America. They serve at the pleasure of that America, but yet that's not what we want, right? Like they're traitors to the values of what we're wanting this country to be. And that is what is so infuriating.
Great. Jamie Slomiak, Jen, a fellow tribes member who managed to find his way out from that hell. Jen, please, here's to keep you from selling out. Well, thanks for the $2. Jen, I didn't know it would only take $2, but that's every dollar counts.
Every dollar counts. Yeah. In order to sell out, you have to be concerned about money.
There you go.
You have to want money. And that's just,
money's what drives you, then yes.
Then that's the thing. But if that's not what you're and I'm not with it.
JG 1982, always a pleasure. Thank you for the $5. Israel wants all biblical land, Bible says, or greater Israel. It's not just Gaza, but all Bible says used to be promised land. Again, I don't give a shit. It's just make-believe. It's written by man. Is God real? Could be, but I don't see the proof.
I'm not with any of it. It's all silly to me. But at the end of the day, even if I were to believe this, right, I would have to recognize that that's not a legal document, and it has absolutely nothing to do with geopolitics. And that's just how that works.
That's true.
That's how that works in a constitutional, republic like we have here. That's just how that works.
I would say that that's probably the more accurate statement in terms of where we stand today.
Well, I've never believed in the first place. So if it's like, that to me is like saying, the Easter Bunny's dead.
Yeah, well, you're welcome, Canadian. And again, for me, I consider myself an agnostic. I don't say I'm an atheist outright.
I'm the atheist. Don't be thanking him. He still thinks it's potentially some like spiritual sky being floating around out there.
No, I
am an atheist and have always been an atheist.
I'm saying that we don't know what's beyond this world. That's why I say that I question it. But if there's one thing I have been able to accurately state is that we live in a world where we should be allowed to believe what we want to believe and not have ourselves be persecuted as a result. And what we have learned in this country is that if you do not follow the Judeo-Christian talking points, then you will be persecuted and you could be shut down. Luckily, our channel hasn't hit that yet, but I will tell you.
I don't know. I mean, I am keeping an eye on channels that are have way bigger platforms and are more known and seeing what's happening to them. And so far, there's a lot of them that are still doing what they're doing, but a lot of those shows are not necessarily monetized.
Sure.
So that's part of it, like shows like The Gray Zone. I don't think that they're monetized.
But what I will tell you guys is that the clip that we did recently about 9/11 with the connection to Mr. Silverstein, that clip was taking off like a rocket ship, and it was shown how Google shut the clip down, basically flatlined it in one swoop. Like this clip was going to do serious numbers, and in about 4,000 views, they said no, can't have that getting out there. So that's one of the things where we could have probably made several $100s from that one clip had it hit the stratosphere, like a 50 to 100,000 view count.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you get choked. They just say, can't have that, not allowed. And that is the risk you take with being on this platform. It's still the biggest one out there and still the one that provides us with the greatest opportunity for growth. As it stands right now, as of this very moment that you guys are joining us this evening, we are sitting at 45,729 subscribers. So we're just a ways away.
We have a couple new patrons.
Oh, we do? Oh,
we do. Hold on, guys.
Let's also give a shout out while we're waiting to more from JG 1982. Thank you for the $5. I agree, but this is cult belief of 2,000-year-old religious crusade, inquisition, or any mass murder they do in name of the Bible. Hence the Crusades. Who do we got, Jen?
All right, so we have whenever it's Canadian, I gotta I always sort of like
5, 10.
It's 5 US, 8 Canadian, but then it's like I don't know how to make that. It's kind of more. It's somewhere between 5 and 10. He's between 5 and 10, and it is Donald Manzerolle, MANZEROLLE.
Sounds very Italian.
Yeah, do you want me to do it? I could do it.
I just did it.
Okay, and then we also have $5 member KC.
Oh.
Capital K, capital C.
Oh, one second. Okay.
Yay, new patrons.
Capital K, capital C. That's it.
Yes.
Just KC. Okay.
KC. I wonder if there's a Sunshine Band.
Casey and the Sunshine Band.
I love Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Well,
that's not Casey and the Sunshine Band. That's Cool in the Gang. Oh, I am most definitely sure that is not Casey and the Sunshine Band and that it's Cool in the Gang.
Was it Cool in the Gang or Casey and the Sunshine Band that played the horn section on Sussudio with Phil Collins?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that I don't know the answer, but I would wait. No, not Casey Kasem. Casey.
I just had to put that. I just had to put that out there because it's funny.
Okay, so did you update our patrons?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Well, yes. As Josie points out, that's what it was.
Cool. Of course. This is where you're so millennial and you're out of your element, Peter.
Fuck off.
To me about, and yeah, Casey's he's from Miami, not just from Florida. He's from down here. When I was a kid in the 70s, like he was a local person down here. Yeah.
Well,
Casey and the Sunshine Band is I'm your boogeyman, boogie shoes. That's the way I like it. Like that's all Casey and the Sunshine Band.
Very, very disco-y.
So good, but just so just happy and so diverse.
Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy.
No, okay, that's John Denver. You're so out of your element.
I know, but that's what makes it fun.
You're not gonna talk like old music with me. You're gonna be out of your element.
Well, I don't want to make you feel bad, but yes, I want to highlight one of the reasons why the Zohran story has to continue to be talked about, because he doesn't have to do anything. You know, we talked at length about how he's already accomplished more than anybody could have ever hoped for just by winning, and winning by the margin that he won by, and the numbers and the people that he brought out there. But you have to imagine that they are very concerned about him in a big, substantial way, because the vice president not only went after him, but he went after him in a way that is actually pretty sad. Like, if you're going to go after him, make it substantive in some way. He wasn't patriotic enough, apparently, on the 4th of July.
And that brings me back, finally, to the next likely mayor of New York.
Not if you have anything to say about it.
Today is July 5th, 2025, which means, as all of you know, that yesterday we celebrated the 249th anniversary of the birth of our nation.
Please clap.
Now, the person who wishes to lead our largest city had, according to multiple media reports, never once publicly mentioned America's Independence Day in earnest. But when he did so this year, this is what he said, and this is an actual quote. Quote, "America is beautiful, contradictory, unfinished. I am proud of our country even as we constantly strive to make it better."
What's wrong with that?
I don't understand. I don't understand what he's saying.
He's saying that. Were you paying attention?
Not really. I was kind of zoned out.
Why were you doing that?
Because I just find him kind of just blah. He's just boring.
Do me a favor and listen.
Okay.
But when he did so this year, this is what he said, and this is an actual quote. Quote, "America is beautiful, contradictory, unfinished. I am proud of our country even as we constantly strive to make it better." End quote.
I understand that. I heard that. It's a nice quote. He's talking about Zohran's quote.
Yeah. That's
so
what
again,
Zohran
all
said.
they're doing is promoting him. They are making fools of themselves.
Oh, you think?
I do think, because even it's like he's actually saying that he has a problem with that statement just by the way he's saying it. And that's a huge tell, because the fact that you would have a problem with a statement like that is pretty telling. Like, they're just outing themselves as the complete bigots that they are.
Indeed.
There is no gratitude in those words. No sense of owing something to this land and the people who turned its wilderness into the most powerful nation on earth. Zohran Mamdani's father fled Uganda when the tyrant Idi Amin decided to ethnically cleanse his nation's Indian population. Mamdani's family fled violent racial hatred, only for him to come to this country, a country built by people he never knew, overflowing with generosity to his family.
Generosity.
Offering a haven from the kind of violent ethnic conflict that is commonplace in world history, but it is not commonplace here. And he dares, on our 249th anniversary, to congratulate it by paying homage to its incompleteness and to
the level of hubris and arrogance. Yeah, you know, the fact that it's a whole thing that can be amended by definition is sort of indicative of its incompleteness.
Isn't that what Jefferson said anyway? I mean, isn't that what the Constitution was designed for?
Totally. Which is why totally. Which is why this is just, he's just so stupid. And here's the thing, is he knows that. JD Vance knows that.
He knows quite a bit, much more than he's letting on.
It's, as he calls it, contradiction. I wonder, has he ever read the letters from boy soldiers in the Union Army to parents and sweethearts that they'd never see again? Has he ever visited the gravesite of a loved one who gave their life to build the kind of society where his family could escape racial theft and racial violence?
The guy's running for mayor of New York City. He's talking about him like he's running for president of the United States.
I love it. He's getting so much attention. That's the beauty of it.
Could you imagine being but it shows you two things. Number one, it shows you that Zohran is for real. That they have probably, I guarantee, the reason he's doing this is because they probably already have had their talk with him. Be like, all right, you're the nominee now. You understand how this works. And all. He's like, no, I'm doing my thing. And they're like, oh, really? We're going to have to come after you then in a really big way.
But all they're doing is promoting him. It is. That's what Josie's saying. That's what I was saying. It's like the Streisand effect.
They're doing the one thing that they shouldn't be doing if they're trying to beat him in the general election. They are giving him free airtime and more name ID than he could know what to do.
It's beautiful.
So they're helping him win, is what they're doing.
Absolutely. That's all they're doing.
Fly, Icarus, fly.
Has he ever looked in the mirror and recognized that he might not be alive were it not for the generosity of a country he dares to insult on its most sacred day? Who the hell does he think that he is?
Oh, I'm going to ride that xenophobic nationalism as far as I can. Right, JD? Right, Hillbilly? You're going to just ride that xenophobic nationalism. How dare he criticize our holiday? Get the fuck out of here.
He didn't do anything.
Nationalistic. First of all, this is all he's doing is trying to hype up using rhetoric, nationalistic, hateful, bigoted shit. That's all he's doing. This is all sort of like whistles to that. How dare this immigrant come here and say not that our country, and he didn't even really say anything other than say it's a work in progress, which to me that's pretty generous. So, the fact that this is what he's using and that's all he's got just shows how pathetic he is actually, and how they have resigned themselves to this. There's nothing they can say.
The best thing that they could do, and as much as I hate saying this, but this was the strategy that Hillary employed when she was running against Bernie until she had no choice. She never acknowledged his existence. They kept it quiet. Now, of course, Bill the Butcher. Yeah.
That was his speech. Somebody said, JG 1982 says that was Bill the Butcher speech, that this idiot is taking a movie line against immigration straight from a movie. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I have never seen Gangs of New York, but I would definitely
see
it.
You know what? You should definitely see it. So as soon as I saw what you were saying, and it did sound very similar to that, I'll take your word on it that basically that's where he's getting his talking points. It sounds about right. That very anti-Irish immigration rhetoric that we got from Gangs of New York. That's what he's basing it on. And that was Daniel Day-Lewis played Bill the Butcher, and he was amazing.
Well, of course, this is exactly what happens. They come to this country and they don't appreciate what is given to them.
No, you're wrong. You sound no, because he wasn't English. Bill the Butcher wasn't English.
No, he was Irish, right? Was he Irish?
No, he was like an American. Like he was one of those people that was like he was not, his parents came wherever they came from, but they weren't from Ireland.
You know what the amazing thing is, and Kat says that it was a great movie. It probably is a great movie, but everything I've ever read about it is that it's a very average movie that Daniel Day-Lewis makes into a great movie.
It was just a really good movie.
Okay.
I disagree, and I reject people criticizing everything else about like Cameron Diaz. She was fine. I mean, could it have been other people done it better? Maybe, I don't know, but she was fine. Like, don't be hating on it. It was a great friggin' movie, and Leo was great. It was a good movie.
Mel, we love you, but here's what I would say. Zohran is actually left, and AOC is what I would call cosplay left. Alex spends more time worrying about the virtue signaling aspect of social left politics than about actually taking legitimate risks. Remember, Zohran went to Albany and took a real chance at being physically assaulted for standing up to what was going on with ICE, among other things that he does.
I can't look at him anymore.
Well, JD's he's a joke.
He's Peter Thiel's little puppet, and I have no, and just there's so many things about him that are just so. I find him very of questionable credibility.
The other thing that's going to happen, especially as MAGA evolves and things change, the landscape of politics continues to change. JD, when he inevitably runs for president, he is never going to shake the fact that, especially if I'm hoping somebody like Thomas Massie runs for president, people are just going to call him Peter Thiel's puppet. That will stick with him on the campaign trail.
So it'll be Peter Thiel's puppet up against like Clinton's puppet, which would be like Buttigieg. It would be like Buttigieg versus JD Vance would be like the
Newsom is already on the trail. He's already
so it's
South
like
Carolina.
Rock'em Robots. Remember that?
Yes. I actually had, I shit you not, I had Bush Dukakis Rock'em Sock'em Robots when I was 5 years old.
Well, Rock'em Sock'em Robots is how I picture, like that's, so you've got Vance and Buttigieg or Newsom, whoever it is, and you've got their little donors back there pulling the little levers, Rock'em Sock'em Manchurian robots.
The reason I want to bring this up, and this is a two-parter for you guys. So I don't know how familiar you guys are, and this, of course, always upsets me the most when I see my Irish traitors to my people. These are the worst scumbags of all. When the Irish betray their own, because when you stand with like Israel, for example, you're betraying your own people, and everyone knows it. So for those of you who are not familiar with tech billionaire Sean Maguire, this dumbass who is, I guess he created Sequoia Capital.
Right.
He had some pretty disgusting comments to say about Zohran Mamdani. In fact, he went to such lengths.
Who is this? This is VC, but so he's just some, what, like?
VC, venture capitalist, rich tech, Silicon Valley billionaire. Close to 600 people. Again, I don't give a flying fuck about you signing your stupid letters. It doesn't mean anything. But here's the thing. Maguire is a huge Trump supporter, and he's a huge Israel supporter. And so scroll a little further so you could see exactly what this little pencil neck motherfucker looks like.
Oh my God.
Of course he does.
Oh.
Scroll down a little further. Maguire, a vocal supporter of Trump, posted on X over the weekend that Mamdani, who won the Democratic primary last month, comes from a culture that lies about everything.
If that is not a projection and an admission, I don't know what is. That's so beautiful. Keep talking, please.
And is out to advance his Islamist agenda.
So replace Islamist with Zionist. And everything he's saying is just his wish list, like what he wants. Continue.
The post has over 5.3 million views as of Monday afternoon. So Lord knows it could be at 10 million at this point. Those who signed the letter are asking Sequoia to condemn Maguire's condemn them and do what exactly? When they say,
well, no, that's the equivalent of their CYA. Okay, that's all they're trying to do. You know what that is, right? CYA, cover your ass. Yeah. So that's the equivalent of their CYA letter. That's not we don't believe what they're saying. They're just taping so that they have plausible deniability. It's not to do anything. That's all it is.
Well, he decided that he was going to make a long, drawn-out video. And if you scroll a little bit further, Colin, Mamdani's campaign did not respond. So basically, forget the sign. You can keep going down. That's fine. Keep scrolling down. Now, Sequoia as a firm is no stranger to politics. Doug Leone, who led it until 2022 and remains a partner, is a longtime Republican donor who supported Trump in 24. Following Trump's election, 12 Trump voters, you no longer have to hide in the shadows. You're the majority. By contrast, one of their other mega donors is Mike Moretz. You see, this is the thing, guys, and this is what we keep telling you, is that it's two sides of the same coin. It just depends on who they want to have in charge. It's all the same bullshit. That's what it comes down to.
They're all friends. The Clintons, Epstein, Obamas, Trump, they're all friends. They're all friends. Lutnick, they're all friends.
Yeah. And what makes this particularly distasteful in so many ways is the fact that he decided to spend about 30 minutes of recorded space on X, Twitter, talking about what an Islamicist, this is the new word, Jen, by the way, Islamicist is what they're using.
What is that? What is that?
Basically, they're terrorists. That's like the way you're saying it. It is so, it's not even that it's so 20 years ago. It's not that it's so George W. Bush. It's that it's so weak and non-substantive and that it has no real value. But what McGuire chooses to do, of all the things that he thought would be sort of a gotcha, he decided to highlight Zohran's father and comments that he made, I believe, in front of the Supreme Court. I don't think this is the own that you think it is. If you listen carefully to what Zohran's father,
when that happened, I love.
It's a video with Mahmoud Mamdani, Zohran Mamdani's father. In it, he's basically talking about using violence as a tactic to destroy Western governments, including America. He's had a fascination with this for many decades. It's a must-watch video.
I think there's also a second lesson we can draw from these events that my colleague talked about. Vietnam, South Africa, and now the US. The US has been at the center of all of these.
Yes.
Even though
where's the lie?
I don't, but yeah, I'm waiting for this to be like, this guy really thinks he's somehow owning him. And again, this is Zohran's father. That's relevant. How?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
why is his father giving us, like, I'm just not even understanding how this is relevant. It's like they're really trying to just find everything they can to own this guy, and they just can't do it.
Kind of like Billy Carter because he was a drunk. You know what I mean? Billy
it's ridiculous.
It's not been in Vietnam, it was on the ground. In South Africa, it wasn't on the ground, and here it says it's not on the ground. What lesson did we learn from it? We learned one lesson, which was that as we mobilized to oppose these actions, we also learned to diversify our tactics. Yes. We also learned that we should not be fixated on a single tactic. We also learned that violence...
Just in case you don't understand, like, this guy is explaining how to undermine America and undermine Western governments in general, how to lead a revolution.
This guy's hilarious. Like, this guy is this man is a joke.
What he's actually saying, little McGuire, I was even going to call him Jerry Maguire, but that would be insulting because that was actually one.
It was a good movie. Yeah, don't go. Yeah.
No, he's talking about how he takes the power away from shitbags like you. That's what he's talking about. You see, guys like him really, especially tech billionaires, if there's one thing you know about these types of introverts that kind of lack personality and an understanding about interpersonal communication, they really see themselves as gods among men because of their mass wealth, which in many ways is just made up because it's on paper. It's not tangible. It's not gold. It's not real estate. It's this supposed value that they manage to bring to the table, of which to me is very overrated. And in his mind, just the concept of hearing rhetoric that suggests we're going to level the playing field so that you cannot monopolize our daily lives, to him, this is violence.
Right. Well, that is
violence.
That's how privileged this guy is, that sounds violent to him.
Well, he wears it well.
Violence are not opposites. We learned that every liberation movement feels at one point or another to resort to violence, but at the same time it is only successful if it does not embrace the violence unconditionally.
Yes.
We learned that in South Africa. The only reason Mandela was successful is because he was preceded by a violent movement, direct action in the townships, because it convinced the apartheid state that if they do not find a peaceful solution, they will have two losses. One will be that the rebellion will spread, and the second will be that their own youth and their own intelligentsia will desert the project of an apartheid state. Remember, they went to meet the ANC in Senegal and in different parts of Europe. This was critical. The smart ones understood the time was limited, which is exactly what the smart ones, we hope, in Israel will also understand.
The truth is that this man doesn't understand what he just heard. He has no idea what he's listening to.
No, he's hearing it backwards. And the other thing that I think is also very telling, and Zohran's father brings up the fact that intelligentsia, they lost them. But in the States, it is different than South Africa and other parts of the world. I don't hear anybody really, I don't know if you do, Jen, but in terms of anybody in intelligentsia speaking up for what's happening with Francesca Albanese, I haven't heard anything.
No, nobody's going to step. No, you're not going to hear that. Not in this country.
No. But he sits there like the peckerhead that he is, thinking that, oh, this is violence against me. You mean because we don't think you should be in control of tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars? No, I don't think you should. I think it's hard to fathom that a person has $1 billion to their name, which is just an insane amount of money when you think about it.
Well, here's the thing is that these people like him are surrounded by people that constantly tell them that their shit tastes good, right? So these people are not, they're so in such bubble wrap that they have no concept. And this guy thinks that he's sort of like showing them. And all they're doing is promoting him. Like, it's really cool. Like, they really have no idea. That's how out of touch. Oh, yeah. That's how out of touch this guy is. He thinks that by putting out this content, that it'll help make people realize that Zohran is an Islamicist, which are you is he Muslim? Are you saying because he's Muslim, is Muslim Islam? Or is that just another way of saying terrorist based on his religion and based on the fact that he's Muslim? Because you're just a bigot. Like, I get it. But who does that appeal to? A very small group of people.
And Henry is right, because further, there should be no billionaires. There should be an absolute limit to how much money. And again, even if I don't agree with this, which I don't, but here's what I will tell you. This is what we're heading towards. You are going to enrage the population to such a point that they're going to seize control of the means of production. And then you're going to get communism, not because it's what we wanted, but it's because what people felt was the only way out of this. So you're looking at people that are controlling the means of production right now, thinking that they don't have to share shit with anybody. And so Sean McGuire, in his mea culpa, wants to attack Zohran. Why? Because he wants to put a single government-run grocery store in each of the 5 boroughs. Could you imagine shitting a brick that hard over that little suggestion?
Because that's not what they're scared of, right?
They're scared of the populations waking up all over the country.
It's what does that represent and what does that turn into? Because that's just the seed, a government-run or funded grocery store in each borough. So you've got 5 of those. And that's just seeds being planted so that other places will start thinking that that's a good idea. So they can't have that. It isn't about this guy doesn't give a shit about the grocery stores. It's about what does that lead to? And what kind of ideas does that give people in terms of what they're entitled to? And in that case in particular, it is their tax dollars.
Yeah.
Right. So, you're talking about state and whatever money they get from the state, and you're talking whatever their city, revenue is and whatever that is. So that is their tax dollars. So they do have a say so. They should have a say so. And this guy doesn't like that because oligarchs are fascists. That's why. They get to exist because of that kind of mindset that allows them to exist. I love when people say, do billionaires have do billionaires have the right to exist? No, actually they don't. But should they is sort of irrelevant. They do. So now the question is, how do we deal with them? And, I'm a fan of Mangio and monetary theory, but, there's all different sorts of ways we need to be approaching it.
There are a lot of different ways that we need to be approaching it.
And this guy putting himself out there, it's just part of that. Because he thinks that, you're right, he thinks that somehow he's owning them. And all he's doing is advertising for them.
The reason that we continue to harp on the necessity of, and this will be our closing story, if you will. I think it's important to understand why severing this relationship or breaking it is a huge part of how we change the direction that this country can go in. Credit to our good friends over at Eisenhower Media for highlighting this on Instagram. That was brought to my attention. Trump calls for peace while approving $510 million in additional bombs for Israel, 600 plus Palestinians killed at aid sites. So they're shooting up aid sites. Another little caveat, which is not getting talked about enough, which is also probably putting MAGA loyalists in a real bind, is the fact that at this meeting that Trump had with Netanyahu, he also approved of additional weaponry to Ukraine. So much for ending that war that I totally am going to end on my first day in office, first day.
And this is where I have to even say, I did think he would be better about handling Ukraine. And it did seem that way at first, but clearly not. Clearly that was just bullshit too. So, well, and it's not, and again, I don't think we'd be in any different situation had it gone the other way. It just wouldn't have even had the facade of trying to help the situation.
Not at all.
Right.
Colin, next slide, please. U.S. approves a $510 million arms deal for Israel. Now, again, the signs are great. And that is a nice sign, I will say. But it's going to take more than signs to get this to stop. Next one. U.S. bankrolls free housing and health care for nearly 1 million Israeli settlers, including that big doofus that was like, hey, if I don't steal this house, somebody else is going to steal it.
And I just want people to understand, especially like MAGA people who I know that with that more America first mentality and the concept about how much money and resources we're sending to Israel, these people, these settlers, they don't work. They don't work. They get free house and they get land, they get a house, and they get taken care of, and they don't even have to work.
No. Why should they?
They don't.
If they get to
they don't work. They don't work. They spend their days harassing people.
Hey, how come they're not called freeloaders? How come they're not called?
There is no bigger freeloader in our entire country right now than the state of Israel.
When we tell you all the time, that we could easily have single-payer health care in the United States. And this is where we are infinitely more hypercritical against the Democrats than the Republicans. Because again, it's two sides of the same coin. But one side pretends like they care about working people. We all know they don't. A single-payer healthcare system in this country, compared to what we have now, just on the surface alone, would remove the for-profit middlemen in between us and our doctors and save $500 billion a year in health costs while covering everybody's basic needs. The only reason we don't have it is because of shit like this, because we live in a country where corporate special interests own our government. And let's be honest, guys, I've been to DC quite a few times over the past few years. There is not enough people walking the streets in DC making these scum suckers miserable. You should be on K Street. You should be in front of the White House. You should be in front of the Capitol. It's public land. You have, and let me tell you something.
For now.
If there's one thing that Washington, D.C. has plenty of, it's tent encampments. They're all over the city. There are plenty of places where people can just put a tent up right in the middle of a town square. You want to take over the nation's capital? It's right there for you to do it. I mean, you should just be doing that.
They're getting harassed. More and more people are getting harassed. I mean, we're seeing it.
I actually haven't been there in a little while. I probably should go back soon and just kind of see what's really going on. If the attitudes are changing, if there's more people that are there, if it's becoming more difficult. We remember we used to cover the stories about how the politicians were stepping over the homeless people to get to work every day.
Of course.
Oh my God. Next one, Colin. So U.S. bankrolls free housing and healthcare for nearly 1 million.
That's what I mean.
Meanwhile, 17 million U.S. citizens will lose basic healthcare.
I just, I hate this way of presenting this information. The problem with presenting the information this way is it really is not properly addressing real how it really works, right? So you're setting it up like it's a pie just by doing that. So they're making it be like, because we give resources to Israel, we don't have those things. No, that's not why we don't have those things. Both of those things are completely unrelated. It's not a pie. And here's another thing. I wouldn't mind helping other countries and people in other countries have healthcare and housing. That in and of itself is not a problem to me. I don't begrudge helping other people with housing and healthcare. I begrudge affiliating with a criminal genocidal enterprise in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that our people don't get housing and healthcare. But I don't have a problem in general with the idea. So I don't like that they're creating this sort of like it's an either or. Because that's another thing that, yes, I support us propping up this idea that we should not be supporting Israel at all. That's true. But that is completely unrelated as to why we don't have healthcare and housing in our country. It's not a pie. That's not how it works. That's what I want.
That's austerity politics for you. Next one, Colin. Congress moves to arm Israel with bunker buster bombs for Iran's strike. So it looks like they're going back for more with Iran.
I knew that. I knew that wasn't over. I knew they're going back for a sec. However, my understanding is that even those won't be able to deal with the situation.
The U.S. has never shared these bombs or the aircraft needed to drop them with any country. The transfer would enable Israel to strike Iran's underground nuclear sites. Trump-Netanyahu promote plan to forcibly remove Palestinians from Gaza. Still don't think it's a genocide? Still don't think it's apartheid?
Are these just like tweets for the week? Like, are you just sharing Eisenhower Media Network's?
It's a conglomerate that they put together, basically highlighting the meeting between Trump and Netanyahu. Look at how, slow down, Colin. Look at how he looks at him. I wonder what he is thinking.
He's not. He's thinking, I wonder how my hair looks.
Does it look as good as Bibi's?
That's what he's thinking. He's looking to see if he looks like he's had the Turkish hair plugs or not. Trump, yeah, I mean, they're having concentration camps. We're rounding up the remainder of the people and putting them into concentration camps.
I mean, at what point does enough people say that this can't be tolerated anymore?
Well, at this point, I've given up hope on that. Because if it hasn't happened now, it's not going to. Like, clearly, this is just where we are right now as a civilization in terms of the acceptable level of violence. And as I've always said, it's determined by the oppressor, the acceptable level of violence. And now when I see people saying violence isn't the answer, oh, I agree. I agree that's not, but the violence being committed on us every single day by things like denying us healthcare and housing and living wages and denying people actual freedom, because when you're in debt for your life all the time just to live, that's not free. That's not free. And that's just like wage slavery. So people that aren't free are going to resist by any means necessary. So again, the level of violence is determined by the oppressor. So when you're forcibly removing people from their place, that's violence, right? When you're denying people health care, that's also violence. It's violence. And violence begets violence. So, I mean, again, to me, it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
I agree. Next one, Colin. Netanyahu nominates Trump for Nobel Peace Prize at White House meeting. Hitler urged for Nobel Peace Prize in 1938. Did Hitler get the Nobel Peace Prize, Jen? I know he was Time's.
I actually don't know.
I don't think so. I know he was Time Magazine's Man of the Year in like 1936. I want to say, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Olympics were held in Munich. I think that was the reason. I could be wrong, but I believe that was the case. But yeah, it's so telling. Like,
oh, and by the way, I am not a fan of violence. I don't think that's the solution. I think it's inevitable.
Oh, I agree.
People in the chat are confusing that I think we can sort of like Mangione our way out of this. I am a big fan of natural and logical consequences of behavior. And I'm just calling it like I see it and how it has traditionally happened like throughout human history. So no, I'm not. I promoted the easy way. I was the Bernie supporter in 2015. That was the compromise. And when people got behind Hillary, I realized that, okay, I guess we're going to have to do this the hard way. And that's where we are. That's where we are. So there was the option to do this the easy way, the electoral politics way. But we've been shown that that is so compromised that doesn't really work. Again, when you make all forms of nonviolent resistance impossible, you are going to make violence inevitable. It's not how I wanted it. I don't want it this way. I wanted the compromise. I wanted Bernie.
Same.
Right. So I don't want violence. Don't think that's what I promote. Again, it's being determined by the oppressor.
And let me assure you guys, as we are you see, it's almost like, as cheesy as it is for me to put it this way, but when you watch our podcast, we're very much like a great album, like a great rock album. There's a story that's being told, and it's all connected in one fell swoop. When we talked about Sean Maguire going after Zohran Mamdani, Sean Maguire is the type of person who did not want to see this country get somebody like Bernie Sanders to run it, who may have given them universal health care and one of the major capitalist doors shut off from profit and exploitation. A guy like Sean Maguire wants to exploit every nook and cranny possible within a system that is either thriving or dying, or in some cases, both. Now, whether he knows the system's falling apart is neither here nor there, but he is the type of person who does not want to see a thriving nation. He wants a nation of serfs that they can rule over. That's it.
That's what they all want. Are you kidding me? That's the whole empire. That's the whole project. And any country that dares to not get with that concept gets cooed. That's the MO.
Next one, Colin. U.S. mercenaries killed 550 starving Palestinians in Gaza, former EU chief.
Okay, so that's basing this on, this is that same number that we saw in the other one about, this is basically just in the past week at aid centers, or since the aid centers that are not aid centers that we know are not aid centers, since those started functioning, that's the number just based on aid centers. And there's only a couple of them. There's only a couple of these aid centers. So that means that they're just really standing there and just open firing.
Bingo. Next one, Colin. Nazi-occupied Poland, Israel-occupied Palestine. There is no difference.
No.
There really isn't. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Perhaps a century later, but it's the same story. I think there's one more, Colin. EU says no reports of Hamas stealing aid. Describes GHF as tool of conflict.
Yeah.
Every accusation is a confession. Since day one,
I can speak from personal experience, and this is why it's very frustrating to me. Like, I know that everything about Israel, everything about it is a lie. Everything about them, their history, their lore, their culture, their everything about them is a lie. So why would anybody believe anything that comes out of a country that is its existence is a lie, right? Like, why would you believe anything they say? So it's just interesting to me that anybody ever would take seriously any claim that they make about anything, Hamas or otherwise.
Amen.
Hamas, Iran, anything. Everything they say is a lie because they are a complete lie.
Yeah, Israel is a complete lie.
Uh-huh.
Colin, any more? Educators Union rejects Anti-Defamation League. Well, took them long enough.
It doesn't, whatever. That's not that exciting to me.
Nah. Israeli loyalty oath is mandatory and a law now for most U.S. citizens. It seems that way. And now that they have to do it this way because they know that they are losing the narrative, it will become that much more dangerous and volatile to speak out, which is why, like we said, we do take a risk every time we go live because there is a chance that they're going to suppress our channel or maybe shut it down. You never know. Any more? It looks like it got frozen. Oh, there we go. Iranian president, and I believe this is from a statement he made when he was speaking with Tucker Carlson. We were at the negotiating table, engaged in talks, and the president of the United States had invited us in the name of peace. In that meeting, we were told that as long as we didn't give permission, Israel would not attack. But on the eve of the 6th round of talks, while we were still negotiating, they practically dropped a bomb on the negotiating table and destroyed diplomacy.
So again, I would wonder, why would any country
trust us?
Sign an agreement? Like, we've never honored a single agreement, treaty, pact that we've ever been a party to. We have no honor whatsoever. Why would any of these countries ever honor any agreement with us or one of our tools? I'm serious. Why would anybody take us seriously? We don't ever honor our agreements. We are rules-based order. That is what we're watching right now crumbling apart, is the rule-based order, because the rest of the world and those of us who, think that people deserve a life of dignity and justice, we don't like this. So the law-based people are starting to rear up, and that's what we're seeing happening. But this rules-based shit where it's like we don't have any laws that we follow, we create the rules, we are the rules. The rest of the world's not with us anymore on that.
Agreed.
They're done with our shit.
Any more, Colin?
Are you going to talk about the Trump making the comment to the president of Liberia?
I did not see that one, but let's just finish this out.
Okay, because
there is only humanity, and if we don't come to understand that right soon, there will be no nations because there will be no humanity. Well, I think we're pretty much there.
We're
places.
We're there.
Anything else?
I think that, yeah.
Wanted for crimes against humanity. And Trump is threatening he's threatening Israel. He's threatening everybody. Drop the charges against, again, this is why Trump is compromised. Whatever they feel that they need to hold over him, they're holding. Could it be Jeffrey Epstein? That's a good question. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's something else. It's definitely not a PP tape. I can tell you that much.
Okay, so this is I mean, how many more of we're just basically we're just scrolling through memes.
Yeah.
All right, we don't need to scroll through memes.
We can end it here.
Yeah, but if you didn't see it, Trump met with. I mean, there were other people there, other African leaders, but one said person that he was speaking with is I believe it's president. It could be prime minister. People, if you know, of Liberia. And we need to, if you guys have not seen this video, see, this is a clip that would be worth watching if you haven't seen it, Peter. So it's Trump compliments him on how well he speaks English and asks him where he was educated. And let me the caucasity of the situation is just, that is off the chart level. So this gentleman and the people that he's sitting with, I can only imagine know what a moron that they're dealing with. Okay. A moron. First of all, English is the national language of Liberia. So there's that. But just asking him where he was educated and you're so impressed with how he speaks English, you fucking tool. His people were speaking English before your people were playing with wheels. Okay. Like, you are so fucking arrogant. So meanwhile, he probably speaks multiple languages. Bet you anything he speaks French, at least French, and whatever else he speaks. Betcha. So it's just infuriating. And no, there is literally video. There is literally video
Colin,
of Trump complimenting this man's English
Colin,
in a meeting with others. You guys have seen it, I'm sure. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I just found it. So, well, you know me, I can multitask sometimes. But this is
because I'm surprised you haven't seen this. The level of condescension.
No, you know what this is? Well, I'm sure it's exactly what I think it is, but we'll play it.
Thank you. It's such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where? In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
No, it really isn't.
People at this table can't speak nearly as well.
That's true. Now, therein is your fact that the people on your side of the table can't speak nearly as well. The fact that you are impressed with this gentleman's English speaks so many volumes. Like, it's watching this was one of the more cringy things. But this is, I do take solace in this, and I want other people to take solace in this, that the people on this side of the table, that on our side, the looking at him side, know that he's a moron. And they don't take it personally. They really do. And I do believe that they do, for the most part, feel bad for us. They feel bad for us, that we're so pathetic. I do believe that. So I don't in any way think that Trump offended this man. I think that this man already knows how little of a person he's dealing with. That's what I think. And I think that thankfully, people like that are the grown-ups in the room. You've got China, you've got even the Shah of Iran, the people that are the grown-ups in the room, they know that they're dealing with a petulant child. They know that. So I take some comfort in that there might be there's grown-ups in the room. But there is no, like, he complimented a foreign leader of a nation whose national language is English, his English, and was shocked that he was educated in said country. First of all, why don't you, at least as a fucking minimum, just take a moment before you meet with people from countries and do a little brief, a little review. I'm sure you could get that in, just a little look-see, so you don't look like a complete fucking moron.
I don't think he reads very much.
Do an audible. You know what I'm saying? Have it read to you. You can have somebody brief you. Have somebody brief you. Basic things about Liberia. Basic things, like a book report about Liberia.
Again, the only thing that's ever really been said about Trump that I took at face value, that I thought was honest, is that he doesn't care about governing. He just wants to. That's why he loves doing rallies. He loves campaigning. He loves being on the stump. Like, that's it. That's what he enjoys. That's what he gets psyched up for. Going through these pomp and circumstance type events. So well
This also is so, yeah, this is one of those things.
That's what I thought.
This is one of those things that's infuriating to me.
Yeah. That's, oh, you speak well for a black guy. Like, that's exactly.
You're so well spoken. As if because you expected otherwise, you bigot. Yeah. No. I'm always amazed when people where English is not their first language sound better than people whose it is. And that's just because we stupid here. And we don't teach things. We don't teach about other cultures. We don't teach other than dominating them. We don't teach other languages. We suppress that shit. We don't like that. We're a very English first kind of place. We like to wallow in our ignorantism.
Well, if you guys have stuck it out with us through the end, and we really appreciate it. One thing we've always talked about, with our channel, we have a very consistent audience. We have guys that stick with us throughout the entire show, which is amazing. And so if you are here and you are inclined to support, please go to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And we did get a few more super chats while we were broadcasting, so we must give our due. Noah Linden, thank you so much for the $5. MAGA is contradictory. They claim America's perfect, the best ever, but then demonize and oppress most of its people.
Well, they're only referring to their people, the white people. That's who they're talking about.
I would say that the only thing that I would agree on is that, not that they claim that America is perfect, but that America is the best of the best. But this is also coming from people that forget not ever really traveling outside the country, rarely travel outside of just the general region of where they are born.
Yeah, there's that, and the fact that they've been sold a whole ball of myths and a whole legend and lore that we've all been taught, this nationalistic nonsense. The fact that we stand and pledge to the flag is so ridiculous to other people in other places.
If you really want to get an idea of what America is like, especially in the rinky-dink, bumbleweed type places all over the United States, spend a few days in Orlando, Florida, and you'll get to see people from all over the United States.
That's true. It is, but it's also very international too there. You get a lot of people from all over the place, and you're right. MAGA is contradictory, but their whole premise, when you say make America great again, we know what that means. They mean they want to go back to that time when they had complete domination and control of the narrative and that of the other people, of the people that are now getting uppity and wanting things and demanding their rights and their dignity, right? So they want to go back to a time where people knew their place, right? Like when the people knew their place. That's what the time is that they want to go back to. So you can't to them that is perfect. That's the time they think is great.
Make America great again.
Again.
But in reality, it's make America great. Because America never really has been great. It's been great for a very small portion of the population. I won't deny that. It's based
on a premise. It's a mythology. It's a mythology that was created because you need to have one in order to have a national identity. You need to have that. You need to have that to keep people in line and to keep them following the structure and going along with it. You have to create an identity. It's what we did here. It's what was done in Israel. That's what you do when you colonize places. You create a national identity and you have to enforce it. And one of the ways to enforce it is with lots of symbolism and lots of all of that kind of pomp and circumstance. People like that. They like teams. They like belonging to something. Most people like having upper management. That's just the way that it is. But when I see, and it says again, I've always been anti flag pledging. I don't pledge. I'm not a flag pledger. I think it's creepy. I think that the difference between this and this is really de minimis.
The arm angle. Just the arm angle. Paul Green Dennis. I think you may be a first-time contributor, and thank you so very much for the $5. Jen, laughed my ass off. Booty jump.
I didn't even know that was new. I thought that's kind of like. I've been saying it for. I don't. What else? Isn't that his name?
Booty Judge, Mayo Pete, Booty Juice, whole bunch of
Oh,
others.
what is his real name? Is Buttigieg, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, Buddha or Buddha Gig, depending on who you're asking.
Whatever, Booty
yeah.
Judge.
I just call him Mr. McKinsey because that's really who he is.
He's just a Manchurian. He's Hillary in a gay man suit.
He's the Democrats' version of J.D. Vance. They're identical. Exactly. They're basically identical.
In fact, it's sort of like people like Peter Thiel hedge their bets and they plant one in both. They have plants in both parties. Exactly. Like the oligarchs have their
Jen, just like the PayPal mafia. Peter Thiel backs J.D. Vance. Reid Hoffman backs Pete Buttigieg. That's it.
It's just it's really I'm telling you, it's knock'em sock'em robots.
It's just a game. That's all. It's just a stupid game. That's what it is. The progressive lefty, great to see you, my friend. I want communism. I don't want communism, but I understand why communism is becoming a thing. It's not hard to see why.
Here's the thing. I want true communism in a form of people who choose to live communally should be able to do so and have that. Like that pleases me, but I am not for forcing that on people. And also, but the concept of collective and communal is the only way that we survive as a species. But the people don't really care about that. That they're just trying to get everything they can out before it all falls apart.
That's it. Looting the treasury. Jamie Slomiak, thank you again for the $2. Jen, vocabulary is awesome. Jen's
700 SAT on verbal.
Jen's better at verbal than I am.
Well, and okay, but I say that because my math was a 400. I was like special ed in a weird direction. Like I had a math score that made them like seriously, like, yeah.
My math was
yeah, but the vocab is definitely my strong suit. Yeah.
Math I was much stronger at. JG 1982, as always, thank you. And a great sort of closing message with liberty and justice for oil.
That's right. Yeah, no, when I say that I believe in communism, that's how I would be happy with a life living in a small, sustainable commune of people that everybody contributes and everybody lives in a peaceful manner. Like that is something I would be happy with. And I don't need a lot of stuff like material things. Like that's just not a thing for, like, I don't care. So
I think if you were to take over like a county or something and you wanted it to be a communal county.
No, it doesn't. No, it should be people should live however the hell they want to live. But in terms of what are universal basic services that any government, any group of civilization, people with resources to have universal basic services, that is a completely separate issue from what people are thinking of as communism. To me, universal basic services is just part of being a civilization. We get things. That's what we get. That's why we have civilization. But as far as communism, to me, I'm not for anything that's authoritarian in any way. So that wouldn't really work, right? So I'm much more of a libertarian, revolutionary socialist, I guess. I don't know. But again, that's why I'm not big on labels. But I personally would be very happy choosing to live communally. That's what I'm saying. Like, I would be very happy with that. I would live very thriving in a nice communal environment. But I don't support authoritarianism. So therefore, you couldn't be imposing that on others, is my point.
Make sure to smash that like button. Make sure that you subscribe, especially if you're new here. Make sure that you share the stream. Remember, as soon as the stream is concluded in the next minute, we hope that you will leave a comment and also check out some of our clips. We are continuing to get ever closer to 50,000 subscribers, which again, when we started this, who could have even thought we would even hit that territory? Maybe we'll have another surge again, possibly when Jen takes her next vacation. Just kidding. But I will be live on Saturday.
And you know, funny you say that because it will be happening again at the end of August where I will be. And that will be more interesting because I could still be with you because I will be on the road.
No, the road.
I'm going to go off on to do like my camping expedition and but I will be in generally speaking, in our time zones.
Good. Well, make sure that you have, as I alluded to, hit that like button, share, subscribe, as we indicated. Saturday, 7 p.m. I am going to do a deep dive on a couple of different topics, but one that I am going to cover is ContraPoints. And evidently there is, again, people who are familiar with BreadTube. The one BreadTuber we have been friendly with over the years has been Vosh, but it is understandable that there is a huge problem within this particular community, gaming community. What I will also say is, do not think for a second that these channels do not get boosted substantially if they are either espousing Israel talking points or not espousing Palestine talking points.
Don't hate on Vosh here. I don't have beef with Vosh.
Yeah, wait, again, I don't agree with Vosh, and I do think he's too neoliberal for my taste. But at the end of the day,
I have no beef with Vosh.
We get along fine with him. Let's stick to what actually matters, because
this actually matters.
Oh, there you go. And keep in mind,
Shunkai, I've been really close to there before. I've actually circumnavigated Lake Ontario. I did it over like the course of like 5 days. It was kind of fun. Yeah, I'm saying. But I will get to Algonquin. Thank you.
Big difference between somebody like Vosh and somebody like ContraPoints is Vosh has been supporting the Palestinians since day one.
Oh, yes. For sure.
So ContraPoints decided to put out a lengthy statement about why she goes by she. We'll talk about that as well. Decided to put out a statement about why they haven't addressed Palestine in basically 2 years.
Are you? See, I don't know that I know who ContraPoints is. Isn't it? I don't know who that is.
RedTuber, just a very popular.
Right. No, I mean, I know I know, but I just don't know who. Like, I don't know who the person is.
Well, maybe you'll watch on Saturday and you'll find out. Maybe. I'm just telling you. We're not talking about it now, Colin. Don't even bother. Just save it for Saturday.
No, I meant literally. I don't know who the person's identity is. I know who I know the account. I'm just saying I don't know who it is.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to describe it.
Liberal Zionist. Ugh.
So what this is going to show is why these people do what they do. Because in the end, our channel gets suppressed because we tell the truth. Other channels get boosted because they go along with the narrative. And that is essentially what happens. So when Tim Pool lets it out of the bag that he has private meetings with Netanyahu and the powers that be for these organizations, he should have kept his mouth shut, because essentially what he was telling you is, I get to be on an algorithm that allows me to make millions of dollars a year because I never cross a line that I can't get back from, or I can't talk my way out of something. That's how they continue to facilitate my 50, 60,000 live stream viewers every time I go live, which in turn creates massive amounts of.
If it sounds like we have some sour grapes, we do. We wish we had that many viewers.
No, we don't even need that many viewers. I mean, obviously, if we were making that kind of money, you know what we could do? We could set up our own Freedom Flotilla and organize.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They do. Some of those people bring in some serious money. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Speaking of money, guys, any money that comes in through any of the merch in our store is for Heal Palestine.
100%. And again, I see what you guys are saying in the chat about Vosh. That's right. We disagree with him on that. And we are not
again. We
lesser evil stuff. Just stop.
We do not get in the thing as to who we talk to, who we like. I am of this thought that we're allowed to not agree with people on everything and still get along with them.
Yeah,
I am okay with that when it's not something like a genocide. That's where we have the problem. When the thought that we disagree on has to do with killing people and hurting other people, then we have a morality problem, not a political problem. That's the difference. And there's nuance in it.
I'm wondering if we should do YouTube essays and if that would be a good thing for our channel. But it depends.
I don't know what that means.
Basically, do like a 20-minute video that is recorded, not live streamed.
But does that involve? That's where somebody tells me if it involves scripting or anything like that, then no.
Not necessarily, but it would have to have kind of like talking points that you would want to hit as you're talking about them. You're not reading.
Well, we've talked about doing like educational type lessons in the past, like doing stuff like that. Is that like what you're talking about? Like a
we
deep
would only
dive?
we would only need to do it like once or twice a month or something like that. It wouldn't even have to be.
Well, I would have to be, somebody wants you to explain BreadTube. BreadTube is like neoliberal independent media.
Gamers, that
social media, neoliberal sort of space where it's like the alternate.
Tune in on Saturday and we're going to talk about it at length. So, I do think that there is, again, I don't get into the gossip stuff. I'm only talking about the BreadTube and ContraPoints in particular because this numbnuts decided that they were going to stick their nose where it didn't belong regarding Palestine. Better to have kept your mouth shut and never addressed it and be thought a fool than to have opened your mouth and removed all doubt. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. I'll see you Saturday. And
I hate how you have to tee it up like we're not a comedy duo, but free Palestine. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.